And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever it may be. Welcome to episode 24 of the MatStats Show, along with Glenn Gormley and Kevin Hazard. I'm Jason Bryant, and today we told you we're going to pivot. We told you we were going to do one thing last episode. Well, forgive us. The World Championships are coming up. I'm doing all this data driving research for the world, so I've got to announce them for the next 9 to 10 days, however long it is, with Kevin's son Brian. So we figured we'd pivot and say, hey, let's talk about the World Championships today. And looking at the numbers before this year's World Championships, some things historically. So I gave Glenn some stuff. I dug up some stuff. We're going to talk about some stuff. And stats, and more stats. And, of course, stats change. And we'll get to the disclaimer about these episode stats as we get going. But let me just get this Tennessee Volunteer crap out of the way now. Glenn, it's college football season. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. And I will make a prediction later in this show that we're going to beat Florida this weekend. So things could have been better Saturday, but a win's a win.
Yeah, the Governors gave you a bit of a run there in the first half, I would assume. So
yeah, more than that, I was
let's
at
go
the game.
pee,
It was,
as they say.
Yeah, we weren't happy, but we won.
Yeah, let's see who's not happy in the SEC. That's a whole separate show entirely. But
the
Kevin,
SEC's
how about you?
Having a bad year. Yeah, we're having a bad year.
Well, if we're going to start with college football, it amazed me how many top 10 teams lost in the first week, and some of them lost badly.
I'm not really. See, preseason rankings in any sport are always like, especially team rankings in football, because it's just you're basically ranking on reputation and returning starters. You don't have any tangible, measure of how good this team are. It's like, yeah, we're going to rank these Power 5 teams in the top. Like the teams that are like 6-6 in the Power 5 will get the bump versus an 11-1 team in, say, the Sun Belt or something. So, again, early season college football rankings are stupid. Early season rankings in almost any sport are stupid. Sorry. Wrestling, at least we start with the baseline of last year and who's returning. Then after that, you're just like, eeh. So anyway, the college football portion of the show, I did watch. I love college football, but I also hate college football because I know what it does to athletic departments, and short-sighted athletic directors who try to run those athletic departments like to blame everything except for what soaks up the resources. But anyway, moving on again, Glenn, should we get to the disclaimer before we start? Because I'm just already starting on a roll. But anyway.
Yes.
As always, as Glenn likes to say, I can take this part now because I've heard Glenn say it so much. The old Bob Seger line, we feel like a number, but this is Glenn's part of the show. So Glenn, please complete the statement.
Okay. It's the song that I thought was best used for a stats show. The old Bob Seger, as Jason said, I feel like a number. I changed a few of the words there on that thing to fit our stats program a little bit better. But that's just what you feel like when you watch a show. You feel like a number. Okay. The next thing that we say all the time, the opinions expressed on the show do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the NWCA, nor do Gormley, Jason, and Kevin always agree on everything that we say here. Okay. Sometimes Jason and Gormley disagree on Tennessee even. I will start with the disclaimer. Jason has spent God knows how many hours putting this stuff together. He is a gold mine of finding out information, letting people know it. The information on this show is as of September 6th. Things might have changed from September 6th till we hear the first whistle in a few days over in Serbia, just so everybody knows. Now, okay, there's a difference between international wrestling and the folk style that we all know here in collegiate wrestling. It's 2 periods in international. So we're dividing this show into 2 periods. Okay. The first period of this is stats from the past episodes. Okay. Especially the 5 most recent World Championships. The second period is a lot of the work that our MatStat resident archivist, Jason Bryan, has put together so we can see what's going on and who's actually wrestling in them, especially for America. Okay. Now, as you see there, one of our most famous international wrestlers, when he won the gold in the Olympics in 2012, Jordan Burroughs. Okay. We're blowing the whistle now and we're starting. Okay. Here's in the freestyle world championships that have been going on since 1951 until next week in Serbia. Okay. The USSR, which people, as Jason pointed out before the show started, me and Kevin are old. Okay. And we remember when it was the USSR. Sometimes I still refer to them as the Soviet Union, even though that's
Wait,
no.
wait. I still remember them as
Okay.
USSR, which puts me in the demographic of being born before the 90s
Yes. Okay.
and before the 80s, mind you.
Well, good.
I was born in the 70s.
So we got three old
yes, I
guys
have
in
an
this show
Olympic
now.
mug.
Okay.
I'm 44 now and I'm losing my hair.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So to the point, I do have a 1984 Olympic Sam the Eagle mug right behind me somewhere on the speakeasy. And that was oddly enough the year the Soviets did not compete.
Yes.
So asterisk away. But anyway,
Yeah, Kevin and I were out of college
we've
at
got
that
the
time.
Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That's what USSR stood for.
Correct. And after that, so in second place is Russia, which is basically the same can of worms. USSR was just Russia and some other the breakaway republics as you see them in there. But the important thing is number 3 on this list is United States of America, which we're all Americans here. And think globally but root locally, guys. I'm an American. Go USA. Okay, now let's go to the Greco in the World Championships. Greco started in 1904 in the World Championships until 1922, then took a break and started up again in 1950 until current. In this, of course, the old Soviet Union and Russia and a bunch of the Soviet, whatever you want to call them, the old countries that were part of the Soviet Union behind the Iron Curtain. United States is 21st in this. We have not been successful in Greco. That's a shame, but it is what it is. Okay. In women's freestyle, this started in 1987. So it has been going on a little bit. Japan is first, China second, United States is third. Okay. We're second in total medals, but third in gold medals. So, and it's a different footprint here where you see Russia is way down to eighth. Okay. Now, what country has won the most gold medals combined in everything in the last 5 world championships? Japan first, United States second, Russia third. Now, Russia was not in the 2022 World Championships for different reasons. And we see Georgia there sixth. That's the country. That's not the Bulldogs. Okay. But University of Georgia should have a wrestling team. Okay. I'm all for that.
100%.
Okay. What country has the most medals in the last 5 World Championships? Russia with 59. United States is right behind them with 58. It looks like we're going to pass them this time for different reasons.
One thing to also consider is now if you want to nitpick, because that's what statisticians do is they nitpick, is we had at the Olympics, they were ROC. At the 2021 World Championships, they were the Russian Wrestling Federation. Now, they are not RUS with their, flag and all that stuff, but we all know who they were, hence the stats are for the Russian Federation for this purpose. Now, if you're breaking it out, ROC, technically it's like the CIS and the unified team. Yeah, we know, okay? There's nuances to every statistical nuance as it is. So just to clear that up in case you're like, well, wait a minute, they didn't count in 2021. Well, we know that, but they're still Russians. So moving on.
It's going to be the thing this year, too.
Yep.
Yeah, this year it's AIN, which, as my friends at Blood Round said, ain't Russia, perhaps.
Yes.
But we all know it. Same with Belarus. So moving forward.
Okay. To slide 11 here. All right. How many countries and wrestlers were in the past 5 world championships? We'll get to what happens in 2023 in the second period of the show. Okay. 2019 was the most countries previous to this year with 95 and 872 wrestlers then. Okay. And since 2018, fortunately, we've had 10 weight classes again, in all the three styles: Greco, men's freestyle, women's freestyle. You know, and back in the old days, we all remember when the Olympics had 10 weight classes each. Okay, now where 52 countries have won medals in the last 5 world championships. Where do these countries come from? Okay, now, just to say something here, Turkey is where East meets West, and never the twain shall meet, right? Turkey geographically is almost all in Asia, and only 3.5 cities in Turkey are in Europe. Why I said 3.5 cities? Because literally Istanbul is both in Asia and Europe. Okay, so Russia, of course, used to cover 11 time zones. The old Soviet Union is in 2 continents, but I counted Russia in Asia in this and Turkey in this for these reasons.
And Glenn, one thing that also Glenn's geographic layout may not match what UWW lists as European and Asian qualifiers. For example, our favorite political powder keg in the Middle East, well, Israel competes in the European championships, whereas its neighbors all compete in the Asian championships. Azerbaijan, which borders Iran, is in the European Championship. Same with Armenia. So there are nuances with our governing body or our international federations, and many federations are like this. This is not just wrestling. So this is not wrestling being unique on its own. So we have a lot of that situations. Of course, Israel being what it is politically in the Middle East. Create, alleviate tensions, whatnot. So, we can try to keep politics out of it. But geographically speaking, there are also nuances.
Yes, there are, even in geographics. Thank you for that. Now, I did put Russia as a separate entity on this because it's so big. But basically, Asia, Europe, and Russia dominate all these medals. And then we do have North America and the Caribbean, which, of course, the United States is in that with only 14% of the medals. Okay. Now we're going to go to this. Well, hold on a second. Kevin, weigh in on some information on what we've given before we go to the second period.
Well, interesting to me. I mean, again, Russia, Soviet Union. The most interesting thing going through the whole thing was just how much they dominated. Since they, I remember, like in Greco-Roman, they did compete in I think 1904. But then they when they became the Soviet Union, they were out until the 50s, and politically they said we need to do this, and they came out of the right out of the blocks, crushing the competition. It was amazing to me how much Russia and the Soviet bloc has dominated both freestyle and Greco. To me, that's the most interesting thing. And the other is Japan. They lead in medals, and they have some really fine men wrestlers, but their women have just totally dominated the sport. I think it's not as much as it was a couple of years ago. I think we've started to catch up with them because I think we have a really, really strong base, and our women's wrestling is getting stronger and stronger. But they have been so dominant. That's an amazing statistic to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Kevin, to your point about the Soviet Union when it entered the fray into the Olympic movement, I recently listened to an audiobook called Inaugural Ballers, which was about the 1976 U.S. women's Olympic basketball team that competed in Montreal. And it actually did a lot of backstory on the Soviet Union and where they would identify where their basketball strongholds. Well, they're in the Baltics, mainly Lithuania and Latvia. So whereas its wrestling strongholds are in Dagestan and the Caucasus region. So and even going back to last episode where we talked about Gray Simons, as I've released the first episode of 7, he beat a world champion from the Soviet Union. His name is Ali Aliyev. That's Azerbaijan right there. It's like modern day Azerbaijan or present day Azerbaijan. It's all modern, but so you will see various basically naming conventions and ethnic backgrounds throughout that giant continent that was its own country for so many years. So now that they've broken up, brings another thing is how the Russians have still stayed very good, even though their strengths in Greco in certain areas are gone. Or then there's, Azerbaijan was a big portion of their wrestling, and in Georgia and Armenia. So all those wrestling centric countries, those areas that are just rugged, tough people, Russia still has plenty of those too. So it's more than just wrestling, and just seeing where, like, how that women's basketball movement started in the 70s, where they were the dominant force when they came on the scene. So it wasn't just wrestling; it was several other things. And you can say what you want about the other things involved with that, but that's where they're picking them up from. And I went to the second period now, Kevin.
Okay.
Ding ding.
We're going to the second period, guys. Okay, here we have a picture of Tamara Mensah-Stock winning a gold medal in 2021, wrapping Old Glory around her. She's not going to be there this year at the World Championship, but we'll have somebody else winning several golds. Okay, now in 2023, this September's World Championships, we now have 1,042 wrestlers from 99 countries, both of the most ever. What you can see on this chart here is all the weight classes: Greco, men's freestyle, women's freestyle, reading it left to right on your dial. Okay, anything highlighted in gold denotes an Olympic weight class. Now, Jason, our historian and guy that knows more about anything else, I'm going to let him explain all this to everybody, what the difference is, how you come to the Olympics, how you come to the World Championship, why are there so many. Go ahead, Jason.
So if you go back and look a couple slides ago where Glenn pointed out the 2019 numbers. So the year before the Olympic Games, the World Championships is the first and most important Olympic qualifier. So this year there's been a little tweak to it, which we will explain here in a moment. But it was basically, if you made a medal match, you qualified your country for the Olympic Games. So if you were wrestling for bronze, that means if you were first, second, third, or fifth, you're going to the games as a country. Now the IOC has trimmed the weights now to 16 across. So to make that work, those two fifth place wrestlers that lost that bronze medal bout will actually wrestle following the rounds for that Olympic berth for their country. So when we say berth, that means if David Taylor wins the world championship at 86 kilos, that does not mean David Taylor has qualified for the Olympic Games. That means the United States has secured its spot at that weight class at the Olympic Games in that style. Mr. Taylor would still have to go through our U.S. Olympic trials process to become the Olympic nominee. And nomenclature is important here because this is the type of things, and again, it gets into semantics. If you win the Olympic trials, you are not an Olympian. You've won the Olympic trials. If you compete in the Olympics, you are an Olympian. So that can sometimes, the exception that we all make, though, is the 1980 team. They were Olympians, and that was something that was out of their control. So while they did not compete, anyway, getting back on my track of semantics here. So you see the yellow weight classes. Those are the Olympic weights. Why are those weights bigger? Well, those are the weight classes that qualify for the Olympics. What good are you to and some countries do say, hey, you're our person. If you win the squad, they're just going to give that person to them. Like in Canada will set their Olympic team before the trials process. Now they'll have the qualifications to qualify the weights this year. Now next year when they go to their trials in late December of 2023, actually that'll be this year, they'll set their team. Now if Canada's had this many allocations, whoever wins the trials, they're on the team. Who is not on the team or is not qualified the weight, they, for example, will be, okay, I'm going to the Pan Ams to try to qualify. It's that athlete's responsibility. So that's a little bit of a tangent in how they're qualified. But we take the 5 here, and then we have the continental qualifiers, like the Pan American qualifier, the Asian qualifier, the Oceanic and Africans will combine to make one qualifier based on their lack of actual medals. They haven't really earned the right to be their own qualifiers in this condensed system. And then there'll be an all-world qualifier, which will take top 3. So we've got those situations. So this year, you want to make the Olympic team, your country wants to make the Olympic team, you're going to compete in those Olympic weights. Some cases, too, the Olympic committees of these countries won't fund the non-Olympic weights. So sometimes you'll see Cuba show up at Pan Am's at just the Olympic weights, or they're not going to send the non-Olympic weights a lot of times. So some of them are cash strapped and like, okay, we can only send this many. So that is why you see the bulk of these Olympic weights carrying the most athletes, because that's where they're most funded, and those are the weight classes that people are looking to compete for. U.S., we do things differently. In some of these countries, it's like if you win the spot, you're the guy or girl.
Thank you for that, Jason. And can you fill the audience in on how you can get to the World Championship? Like, why are there so many countries now?
To be able to compete at the World Championships, you have to at least enter your continental qualifier. So a couple years ago, there was the thing where they pulled Kyle Rochelle basically out of retirement for the United States to wrestle 74 kilos at the Pan Am Championships. Well, if the U.S. wouldn't have entered a wrestler at the Pan Ams, guess what? The U.S. doesn't get to enter a wrestler at the World Championships. So that was Mr. Burroughs' weight. Well, Mr. Rochelle was the only guy who actually had an active passport who could get down to the tournament on short notice, and he went. I think he actually won it. So that's where the importance is you've got to at least follow the process. So you have to enter, your country has to enter at the weight class to be eligible for the Senior World Championships. So that's how they get there.
It got down to the last minute, and they didn't realize that they had to be at the Pan Ams.
No, it wasn't the last minute. They were just trying to find somebody that had like Burroughs wasn't going to go, and then I think the number 2 couldn't go, or the number 3. It was like a series of like, who are we going to find? Who's got a passport that's close to the weight? So, because your passport can't expire within 6 months or something like that to travel some places too. So that was a couple years ago. And I knew that, it's been made a bigger story than what actually it was, but they had it taken care of. They just needed a body to enter. Like one year, Ben Provisor wrestled both styles. He wrestled Greco and freestyle, and it saved him a trip to try to find another Kyle Rochelle to pull out of retirement.
So even if you qualify the weight, you still have to go to the Pan Am Games?
No. The qualifiers are different.
Right.
There's a Pan Am Championships, and then there's a Pan Am Games, and then there's a Pan Am Qualifier. There are 3 different events. The Games is an Olympic-style festival the year before the Olympics. So we'll have a Pan Am Games this year in Santiago, Chile. The Pan Am Championships are just a tournament during the Olympic year. The Pan Am Qualifier is only for countries that have not yet qualified for the Games. So if the U.S. has all 6 of its Olympic weights qualified after the World Championships, no U.S. wrestlers will be in the Pan Am Olympic Qualifier. So
okay.
That's how that works. You can't steal bids and prevent prevent countries from going. So that's how those work. The nomenclature, again, the terminology, the semantics, whatever you want to call it, can be a little annoying sometimes.
Okay. And guys, what we talked about in a couple of slides, there's now 1,042 wrestlers. In 2019, there were 872. That's a 20% increase. That's a huge increase. And Jason was saying we have 180 odd national federations for wrestling. It's great. And now we have 99 countries, which is 4% more than the 95 we had in 2019. And if you've noticed, it is skewed towards men. And as Jason pointed out, and many times I've seen him talk before, is a lot of the countries don't have the system set up yet for women to do that. Eventually, the women will catch the men in this. Okay, now, here's what we're going to look at. We're starting with the women's freestyle here, guys. Anything in gold, once again, is the Olympic qualifiers, Olympic weight classes, excuse me. So it shows you how many World Olympic medalists there are in those weight classes, all the entries, Senior World Championship, Age Group World Championship, and Olympic medalist. Okay. For reasons that Jason's explained, I think, pretty well to everybody on this show, there's more old Olympic and World Championships in the Olympic weight classes.
And also, from a statistical standpoint, what is an age group world champion? Well, just to make sure, it's one of those things where we use it to identify, one, who the next level are, Two, who knows how to compete at the world level? These are the little, the X factors I look at. But those age groups are the U17s, which we used to call cadets, the U20s, which we used to call juniors, the U23s, which many people just called university, but before it became a specific group called U23. So those are the three age groups. So you will often see U23 and seniors and maybe even some juniors compete at the senior world level. So we've got the seniors is that's the major leagues. That's the big dog. Of course, the world. So anything in these columns where you see world and Olympic medalists, those are senior worlds and Olympic games. Those are the worlds and Olympics. Those are the big dogs. So the age groups tell you, here's how many up-and-comers. Here's how many kids, or when they were kids. Here's how many athletes were hammers or have wrestled for medals or know how to win at a championship like this, to give you the depth of the weight, where you'll see somebody that's coming up from the junior age group, the U20 age group, ready to break out and emerge. Like last year we had a unique situation. We had two wrestlers, one of which were Americans in women's freestyle, that won a world championship at the seniors, the juniors, and the U23 age groups in the same year. So it had never happened before, and we had two athletes do it, both women, one from Japan, and one was Amit Elor from the United States. So that is how these charts are broken down, just to give you some clarity on, wait, what do you mean by age group world champion?
And hasn't Elor done it this year? Elor's already won 20.
She's got a world title already. So, yep, she's got a juniors. I think she's got 6 now, yeah. I think.
Wow.
Amazing. Okay. I think she might be heading towards like the best of all time status, the GOAT, if she keeps it up.
She's 19.
I know.
It's like,
and she's under
let's start counting.
Already,
I know.
And under 23
crazy.
Twice.
Yeah, amazing. That is remarkable. Okay, this slide here, slide 17, shows the same things for men's freestyle. The same thing where it's the Olympic weight classes have more world Olympic medalists, although the women, the senior world championships were equally distributed. Okay, then if you move to Greco, it's the same exact scenario.
The caveats, well, this doesn't include Zarbek Sidikov. So as of 1, 2, 3, 4, Tuesday, September 12th, as we're sitting here recording this, was actually added to the field this morning, according to UWW's entry system. So he is not indicated in these stats. He's a multiple-time world champion at 74 kilos from the Russian Federation, competing as an athlete independent neutral. I don't know. So anyway, move into Greco.
Okay, Greco is the same scenario as men and women's freestyles, where the Olympic weight classes have the toughest field and the most returning people that have won medals. Okay, next we go to the field in total. There are, on the next slide, just thanks. There are 184 world medalists from 39 countries and neutral athletes. Azerbaijan leads in Greco, Iran men's freestyle, Japan women's freestyle, Azerbaijan and Japan are tied for total. This gives you a list of everything here. You can see Old Glory there is highlighted in blue. Okay, we have 11. That's 2 off the total from Japan and Azerbaijan.
I want to point something out here too, Glenn. When you look at Japan, women's freestyle, they have a 10 highlighted. That's every weight class. There's 10. They have a returning medalist at every single weight class this year.
Yeah, that's a good team.
We have 7, which is a real good team.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Just when you think you've got something that's dominant and good, oh, wait. I always joke that when we were at World Championships, when you'd hear the Russian national anthem, like one year in 2007 when I was in Baku, they won, their men's freestyle team won 6 of the 7 weights. And I just like, well, it's Drago time, meaning you'd hear the bars of their anthem, and you're like Rocky IV, hearing, then when the Japanese women started running through everything, well, it's Japanese Drago time. So we hear Japanese Drago time quite a bit when Brian and I are announcing the World Championships. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of Japan. And it's this real regal, almost sinister sounding anthem. It's like the Japanese anthem is kind of chilling in a cool way. So
good. Okay, now let's go on to the. This is the slide shows you how many countries have Olympic medalists at the 2023 World Championships. And Kevin, tell everyone what country leads this.
United States.
Yes, sir. United States has 6 back. Japan has 5, and so does the independent neutral athletes. Okay, so that's a great thing. 44 Olympic medalists are going to be at the 2023 World Championship. That's quite a few. Okay.
And we have to say approximate because we've got Sidakov and
Oh, yes.
again, let's just forget forget about Sidakov now.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, moving forward.
Forget what we told you.
Forget I even said it.
Yeah. Okay. How many world champions from all age groups are at the 2023 World Championships? Okay. Georgia and Japan, Georgia the country, not the great dominant football team here, lead with 14. United States is second with third with 13, since Japan and Georgia are tied. But that shows you a bunch of different countries. It's nice to see. Okay, now here's something that Jason spent a lot of time putting together. On this slide,
I love this stuff, by the way. This is like my favorite stat. This and the next two slides are my favorite stat.
I'm glad it is, because I love it too. Okay, there are 47 colleges in the United States and Canada that produce 77 wrestlers at the Worlds. Everything in red highlighted here, guys, is a Canadian college that wrestles in the CIS. Simon Fraser, that is a college in Canada, does wrestle in the NCAAs. Okay, so it's really great to see that. And Michigan leads the way with 6. Okay, Simon Fraser is second with 5. All right, it's a really interesting thing here. USA has 40 colleges, Canada 7. Okay, and with this being said, Jason also put this next slide together, which is darn impressive. This is a list of people wrestling for countries other than America that have wrestled either here or in Canada in college. It's a great list, guys.
Well, side note, Lachlan McNeil and Adam Thompson are Canadians who wrestle in the United States too. So we've got those two who are actually from north of the border that wrestle in the U.S. So, and then the Canadians, again, Simon Fraser is, again, our asterisk, or because the Godinez sisters and Justina D'Estasio, they're Canadians. They wrestle at Simon Fraser, but Simon Fraser, again, competed in the WCWA and the Women's Collegiate National Wrestling Championships, and their men's team competed in NCAA Division II. So I'm including them because they compete in, air quotes, the American collegiate system.
Yeah, it's great to see the American colleges put this many stuff. And once we have more women's college teams, we're going to see even a bigger number of this. Okay, now.
Yeah, we've seen some things with, well, look at Puerto Rico, for example, a U.S. territory. Look at the Lehigh, Michigan, Rutgers and Northwestern with Rivera. Shane Jones, my man, is a walk-on at that school in Norfolk from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Wins the spot for Puerto Rico. He's been living down there. I believe he married a Puerto Rico native, and he's been down there. He makes the school in Norfolk make the show again, and this time in a positive outlook. So he's there. Ethan Ramos was an All-American. Now, Jonathan Smith's from California, and he has the unique one. He was one of Presbyterian's first commitments. And then he wrestled in California at Cerritos, which is one of the California junior colleges. So Iowa representative with Victor Voinovich, who just transferred from Oklahoma State. So a lot of fun stuff here. NAI national champion Ghulamjan Abdullayev won a title last year, undefeated from Menlo College. Yeah, he was an Olympian for Uzbekistan. He's in the field too. So imagine wrestling that guy at the NAIA championships. You're like, wait, what? I got an Olympian? Yep. Shades of Daniel Legali when he was wrestling for Simon Fraser after beating Lincoln McElravy. Go figure. So this, again, is one of my favorite. And Kevin, I can't leave the Hazard alum out of it. Brian, that is, with IB, Ibrahim Banduka, wrestling for Sierra Leone, a George Mason Patriot. So a couple of our Virginia schools. And Ben Hannes for Italy played football at Syracuse once his wrestling career was over at Cornell. So a lot of weirdness here. I love it. I love this stuff.
Yeah, it is fun looking back and seeing all these different things. And it's remarkable how this guy from Syracuse could have played football there and made the World Championships. Nice to be good at two different sports. Okay, now the next slide is Jason put together. I didn't list every single country because there's so many countries in this. This is a team arithmetic mean of all countries. That's different than the arithmetic mean for all wrestlers. I don't want to get sidetracked with the stats thing. They're relatively close with this big of a pool, but this big of a window, but there is a slight difference. Okay. Now, you can see the ages up there. They're basically all the same 25.9, 25.6, 26.1 in the styles. And in all the styles, America's team arithmetic mean is a little bit higher than the world's team arithmetic mean. Now, Jason's going to go to the next slide where he puts some stuff together in this. In this slide, Jason's using the individual arithmetic mean as opposed to team. Go ahead, Jason. Tell us some of the great stuff you found here.
Oh yeah, so the impetus for this idea was when I was announcing the Commonwealth Games back in 2018 down in Australia. I was using this little, it's like, I don't want to say Larry Merchant's CompuBox, but it was basically like a participant information system. They didn't have the database, so I clicked on it, and there's this guy out there, and I was like, no, he can't be like 48 out there. And sure enough, there was a guy that was 48 years old wrestling for, I believe it was either the Bahamas or Jamaica at the time. And he was the only guy, and he got this huge crowd pop behind him. And it was crazy. So each year since then, I go to try to find who's the oldest athlete, who's the youngest athlete. The oldest athlete in the field is a Spanish heavyweight in men's freestyle, Jose Cuba Vasquez. He's 42. He's still younger than me. The youngest athlete is Adrian Maynard from Barbados. Yes, Barbados, the island in the West Indies, in the South Caribbean down there. If you know geography. If you don't, it's down there. He is 17 years old. Now, wait a minute. What? You have to turn 18 during the calendar year to be eligible for a senior championship. Now, that's a tweak where, we don't have 15-year-olds wrestling at the World Championship anymore. The Jimmy Carr thing cannot happen these days. But he's 17, turns 18 in October. We've talked about the averages. The oldest team is Angola, which has only twice participated at the World Championships before. They're bringing more than one athlete this year. Spain has the oldest team, obviously buoyed mostly by Mr. Vasquez. And the team is the oldest is from the women's side is Venezuela. But I also took into consideration teams of one. I tossed out, because if you've got a 41-year-old athlete, you can't be like, yeah, well, the average age is 41. Yeah, true, but is there an I in team? Well, in this case, no, I'm not saying that there's an I in team. Most experience, this is talk about who's got the most reps. Riza Kayalp of Turkey, and I'm saying Turkey because that's how they say the country now, has wrestled in 10 world championships and 4 Olympic games. He's 33. Ligeti Daniel, now we say Daniel Ligeti if we're westernizing it, but in Hungary they say the last name first. So when Brian and I announce the Worlds, we do that the same way we do with the Chinese and the Koreans and the countries that do it in that particular way. Ligeti Daniel, another heavyweight in men's freestyle, has wrestled in 9 world championships and 2 Olympic games. He's 34. Roxana Zasina from Poland, 13 world championships and 1 Olympics. She's 35. The most medals at the senior world championships and Olympics belong to Riza Kayalp. He's got 12. He's placed 9 times at the Worlds, 3 at the Olympics, and he's won 5 world championships.
Wow.
On the freestyle side, it's another Turkey heavyweight. This one's Taha Akgul, who's won 7 world medals and 3 Olympic medals, 3-time world champion, won the Olympics in 2016. And Maria Stadnik of Azerbaijan, who started her career in Ukraine at 50 kilos, 6 world medals, 4 Olympic medals, 2-time world champion. So the 4-time Olympians in this group, there's 2 of them, the Riza Kayalp and Maria Stadnik, and they're making a run for their 5th berth. And for Kayalp's case, he might have to deal with Mian Lopez, the giant Cuban who's won 4 Olympic titles. He's rumored to be coming back, who is actually 3 years younger than I am. So that is some of the nuanced nuggets that I like to pull out, and I will be saying throughout the course of the tournament. So if you're listening on Flow, watching on Flow, and in the background, you'll hear these nuggets of information that are dropped. This is where it comes from. It's geeky stuff like that I love looking at.
Okay, I've got a question.
All right.
You were just saying Riza Kaya. Do you have a pronunciation guide in front of you at all times, or do you just know this from doing this over the years?
Both, actually. So side note, let's talk about that for a minute, because again, I geek out on that stuff. I have a spreadsheet. Well, it used to start as a spreadsheet when Brian and I first started working in the 2015 World Championships. He was doing the ESPN3 or watch it, whatever it was called then. He was on the side doing a mat, and I was doing the PA with fellow Virginian Ken Berger. And I had a list of all the entries, and then I created a Google Doc, and I wrote down the pronunciations. So from year to year, I would reference the previous year's stuff. This past year, I actually created one single document to collect all of the European, because now I'm doing the European, so I'm getting half the work, if not 3/4 of the work, done at the European Championships before I even go to Worlds, because there's 500 athletes at the Europeans that, okay, they're the ones that I'm probably going to see at the World. So I have the list, I have the entries, I have the country, I have the first name, the last name, their what I call the database name, which is the name you see in the results, and then a pronunciation, their date of birth. So that master sheet, I will then create a sheet for the event and use good old VLOOKUPs and import ranges, things that Excel geeks know about, and pull, okay, here's the name. It's say, okay, look up this cell's birthday. Boom, there it is. Look up this cell's pronunciation. Boom, there it is. So I've basically streamlined it to where I have one file with probably 4,000 names in it right now, with every wrestler's not every wrestler's pronunciation, but every list that I've got. And right now, I think there's only about 20 names of the over 1,000 that Brian and I have to research when we get there. So I've automated the process pretty good. I have a pivot table that pulls in all those names to tell me, okay, here's how many medals they've won. And if you double click on it, it will expand on the years and such, like a pivot table does if you're familiar with it. So keep a big updated list. And it used to be hours and hours and hours of time to do these credentials and stuff because of the UWW database. Well, the German guy that does it's a little liberal with how he translates things. So I created my own copy, my own sheet to pull in this information. And it's just, it's really streamlined the process. But yes, we have the sheets available. Most of these things you've seen enough, you know how to say them, or you work them enough, they become common. Sometimes, like the Angolans and the Sri Lankans, you hope to get it right once because, in all honesty, they may not make it to a second round or a repechage because those developing countries usually don't last long. And you see a name that's got 27 letters, you find a referee or you find a coach and just say, you write it out phonetically, and it could be 47 phonetics to say a two-word name sometimes. So a lot of it is repetition, knowing the referees, and, keeping a list. Why throw that stuff away? So that's why I kept this giant Google sheet. Essentially, it's a database of the pronunciations that just import from each event to the next when when I say, okay, these guys are in it, look for them. So, yep, we both have it on our screen. We have a big screen in front of us, and most of the time, you say enough Georgians enough, you really can just look at it and eyeball it. You don't need to reference it every single time. So, when you see Riza Kayalp, or my friend from Turkey, Kadir's like Kaya Alp. So you'll put the extra pronunciation out, and you also got to be aware. You see a W in German, that's not a W, that's a V. So Volkswagen, some of those things. Yeah. So there we go. So that's how that works.
Interesting.
Thank you for taking us in a deep dive there, Jason. I think the viewers are going to be really thrilled to hear that. The next slide shows 6 new countries we have. So Jason gives a little 411 or information on these countries. Tell us a little bit about this stuff, these new countries here, Jason.
Well, it's not necessarily new in all the cases. It's just a notable. So Cambodia, first on the list. This is their first appearance at the Senior Worlds in here we are, 17 years. So it speaks to the development and expansion of wrestling globally. Like you said, this is where we think globally. Comoros, it's an archipelago. It's an island nation just north of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. I know this because I'm a geography nerd. My daughter and I play Wordle at the end of each night. My daughter knows the shapes of the countries in the world better than she does the shapes of the states. So she'll be looking at it, like last night, she's like, that's Vietnam. But when he gets like, I was like, I'm Montana. So it's weird. She knows all the state capitals, but knows the shapes of the world's countries better. So Comoros is an island off the eastern side of the continent of Africa, a set of islands. Now, Cabo Verde, commonly said as Cape Verde. Now, Cabo Verde is in its second appearance at the World Championships, but the first time women will be competing for CPV. That is off the western coast of Africa. So where all those hurricanes spawn, the Azores and that general region. Sierra Leone, as we mentioned before, with IB, first time they'll be at the World Championships since 2011. They have been registered, however, with the developing African nations. Sometimes there's funding issues. One year there was an Ebola epidemic out in West Africa, and then I think Kazakhstan was like, no, nobody from that part of the world's being let in. So they were supposed to come but didn't because of global health issues. Uganda competing in women's freestyle for the first time anytime at any age group. And Barbados, as mentioned earlier, they wrestled at an age group world championships last year. This will be their first appearance at a senior world championships. They do have appearances at beach world championships, which is fitting because it's an island in the Caribbean. So those are some things to keep an eye out. Last year, I remembered I think it was a wrestler from the Congo, might have been the Democratic Republic of the Congo, won a Greco match against the Ukrainian. So double check that was the first win they had. You've seen Kenya, Angola, Liberia, the countries in sub-Saharan Africa really starting to develop wrestling through a guy named Vince Aka is doing some amazing things with a developmental program. There's a training center in Senegal. I think there's another one also in Africa too. I want to do more information about that later. I don't know enough about it to speak on it with a lot of emphasis, but it's always great to see new flags, new countries. And I feel like that's teaching people things about the world. Wrestling is a great teacher of geography. It's a great teacher of cultural acceptance, of cultural knowledge. You see names, oh, that's that name. You should address them this way. Last name first name, it's just something that I feel has made me, kind of a better neighbor. I live in a pretty eclectic block as far as my neighbors go. So it's one of those things that makes me want to try the foods from those cultures and stuff. So every time I see a new country, I kind of get excited about it too, because that's a stat we get to tell tell the world about.
That's great, Jason. Thank you for that update. Now, the next three slides, guys, show you our roster for the women's freestyle, the men's freestyle, and the men's Greco. So if anybody has any questions, all the wrestlers are there. It's updated as of today. Okay. Now we're going to shift to something, guys. This kind of goes on what MatStats talked about in episode 20 on May 17th of 2023. I'm here for the party is what we called it. Nebraska women's volleyball got 92,003 fans at Memorial Stadium in the end of August. That is their football stadium. You see the picture there, guys? That is more people than they've ever had a football game because they could fit people on where the football players would be playing. Okay. It's a staggering thought, guys. It was the largest crowd ever to see a women's sporting event anywhere in the world. That is just unbelievable. And other schools are floating the ideas to break this attendance record. So, guys, this kind of really leans to what we were talking about just in our show, just episode 20 in May, that let's do some fun, different things. And this came about as a result of the Nebraska AD trying to set a record, and people came and saw it. So, next slide. This is where I made my prediction. I announced it already early. Tennessee's going to drain the swamp and beat Florida this year. That's a picture of last year of Smokey giving the business to an inflatable gator during our win. Okay, now we turn our stage over to Kevin Hazard, the senior member of MatStats, to give us the Kevin notes.
Interesting, and we talked about it earlier. It's just the first note was how much the Soviet Union has dominated men's freestyle since they came on board in 51 to 88, and then to 92 when the Soviet Union crumbled, and Russia, which was the largest part of the Soviet Union, has still dominated. Number 3, same situation in Greco, but even more lopsided. And as much as the Soviet Union and Russia have dominated, Japan has dominated since 1987 in women's freestyle, and the Olympics since 2004. In the last 5 Worlds, Japan has won the most total medals, USA a close second, and that's in all styles. But Japan is up there primarily because of their really, really fine women's program. In the past 5 worlds, 5 of the top 10 gold winners are from the former Soviet Union. Number 7, Russia leads the past 5 worlds with the most medals, 59. USA is second with 58. Again, 5 ex-USSR countries are top 10 here also. Number 8, and this is I really like this, and Jason, I think you were spot on talking about just the different cultures of the world. 99 countries and 1,042 wrestlers at the Worlds, the most ever. Think about the other sports that have world championships. I mean, you get down to 16 teams or 20 teams. There's 99 countries going to be at the World Championships. I just think that's phenomenal. And like we just talked about, Nebraska women volleyball had 92,000 spectators for a match. Bill Veek would have been proud, or Vec. And 10, USA, USA, USA. It's going to be great.
Going to be great. Okay, Kevin, thank you for that. And guys, our next show is what colleges have teams, what colleges don't have teams, and what colleges might add teams. It's a show that's perfect to start the preview to the college season. Kevin and Jason, you have anything else left to say for this episode?
I just want to say good luck, and Jason, give him hell while you're out there.
Yeah, Jason, good luck with it, man. We're so lucky to have both you and Brian Hazard representing this country behind the microphones. You guys do a great job. Signing off from my co-hosts of MatStats, Kevin Hazard and Jason Bryan. I'm Glenn Gormley. See you next month, and go USA.